I would call to order the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission for August 11th meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Anton?
Here.
Commissioner Pill?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas? Commissioner Fidesco? Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Fleet?
Here.
And Chairman Richard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, if you would please all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. While I have you all standing, please, anybody that will give any testimony tonight, either for or against any item, you have to be sworn in. So I swear that any testimony I give this evening shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I do. Okay, gentlemen, I would ask that all electronic devices be put on mute or silenced for the meeting, if you would, please. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our July 14th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion? May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Abstain.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Pass. Right, the minutes as printed are approved. Next item under open hearing is new business. Planning and zoning item 10-021. Hector and Iris Colan regarding the property located at 222 Willard Place for the following. A, zoning code variance request to permit a fence to encroach into the required 35-foot front yard setback. Mr. and Mrs. Colan, if you would, please step up to the podium and sign in. Oh, please proceed.
Okay. Good evening, Commission. My name is Iris Cologne. My husband, Hector, and I are here because we're requesting a variance on an ordinance regarding our fence. It's a replacement fence. It's been there for at least 16 years. We went through the approved process. We requested the permit. We tried to do everything that we were supposed to do right. I don't know what else to say except that I hope that you agree and give us the variance.
Would you allude to the hardships you would require that would be imposed on you if you had to put the fence back to where it did belong?
We have a paved patio that was put in and again approved with a permit back in 2001. If we moved the fence back, a good portion, I would say a third of it, would be in the middle of the front yard, completely unused. And also we have dogs, and the reason we replaced the fence was because the people next door also have yards. And our dogs don't really get along very well, and that's part of what happened with the fence, you know, getting kind of chewed up along the bottom in the beginning. We enjoy our privacy. You know, we work hard. This is our little haven to come home to in the evening, and we're just trying to keep up our property and keep it looking nice. That's all we're trying to do. We're replacing it. We're not reconfiguring it. We didn't know anything about the new ordinance until after the fact, which, you know, then we certainly would have tried to come up with a different idea, but again, that was after the fact, so.
Is it my understanding that you did everything you were supposed to do? You applied for a permit, you received
Yes, sir.
permission
Yes,
to
sir.
put the fence up?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it was attached with, from our contractor, what it was going to be like, so.
Yes. All right. Is there anybody from the public who will speak either for or against this item? If you would, please.
Just for the record, these are my daughter's neighbors. We just know them because they live next door to her, and it's just a coincidence that we happen to be here on the same evening.
All right. If you would, please announce your name and sign in.
My name is Vivian Sharkey. Oops, excuse me.
Yes, name and address if you would, please.
I live at 221 Willard, which is right across the street from Hector and Iris. I've lived there for 12 years. The fence has been there the whole time that I've lived there. I don't even notice the fence coming out of it. Just never. And all Hector and Iris did is replace what was already there. And every year, all they do is improve their property. Improve it, improve it. They're the best neighbors. They would never, ever do anything that wasn't correct. And they thought they were doing the correct thing. Just to let you know that the neighbors find no problem with that fence whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Chris Johnson. I live at 223 Willard Place, next door to Vivian and across from the Colognes. I would echo everything Vivian said about them being excellent neighbors. They improve their property constantly. We've lived there for 8 years, and obviously the fence has been there the whole time we have. It would never have crossed my mind that there was anything untoward or against the zoning laws. It's just it sticks out 5 or 6 feet. It covers a little corner, but it's an important corner of their patio and their private area. It's a good-looking fence, and there's a lot of variation in the properties on our block. That's one of the things that kind of makes it an interesting block to live on. So the thought that anybody would think that there was anything amiss about this fence is really kind of it's just unthinkable. We've also talked to other neighbors who aren't here tonight, and they also think that the fence is just fine. They have no problem with it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Liz Johnson. I live at 223 Willard, next door to Vivian and across the street from Hector and Iris Cologne. And I don't have much more to say than what's already been said, except I know they did try to do the right thing and do it the right way. It's a teeny little encroachment. It's not much of the yard. It's just a little corner of the yard that basically allows them to use their side door and their grill. And I hope you let them keep it the way it is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Yvette Cologne. I'm their daughter, Hector and Iris Cologne. Our family moved here into Westmont. Wonderful community to come and grow up in. I am now a homeowner myself. I live at 408 Lindley, and I just here on their behalf to explain that the fence that we created, it was to get privacy, to enjoy family outings, to have barbecues, small, in approved container bonfires, have dogs, and just have a life there. And it was wonderful. And everything that they've done has reflected upon me now being a homeowner as well. So I hope that you guys allow that. And I look forward to working with the town and my own improvements on my home as well. So I appreciate.
Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment? Okay, let's close the public comment. We'll start with Commissioner Fleet, if you would.
Would staff have anything to? having driven by there, having never seen the previous fence, but the installation, I can understand the family's desire to do this, and the actions or things that went on with the process to get us to this state. I'm feeling that, from my viewpoint, I like the fence, I like the installation. I'd like to see it stay there.
Commissioner Van Buren?
Yeah, I can understand why you were here for a variance, because things changed. But what really disturbs me is a representative of the village approved it, and now you're paying to be here. And I would certainly hope that that fee would be waived. That's all I have to say.
Commissioner Anton?
I'm probably the wrong guy for this because I love fences. I had a big one at my house. I have a big one at my new house. So, yeah, I can understand. To me, I went by there today, and it looks a little different, but hey, you know, I got to go with the residents on this. And I think you should be waived too.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes, it's a very, very nice home, and you've done a nice job keeping it up. It looks beautiful. Congratulations to that. And it's nice to see the support of your neighbors and friends out here. And I have no problem with this either. I would support this 100%.
And I also would echo my fellow commissioners' comments. I'd like to commend you on the upkeep of your home, which is very nice, and the regard to your neighbors, how they speak for you, it speaks well for you. I have no problem with this whatsoever. Since we have a variance request, we need a reading of the findings of fact, if we could, please.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant is seeking to replace an existing solid fence of 16 years which provided privacy and security for the applicant. The privacy is necessary for this property due to its extremely narrow lot width of only 49 feet and the home's close proximity to neighboring homes. The applicant has already installed this fence due to an erroneously issued permit and would face an economic hardship if forced to remove the fence.
If you agree with this, please raise your hands. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The fence is replacing an existing solid fence at this location is necessary due to the extremely narrow lot width of the applicant's property and the corresponding need for privacy.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. Surrounding neighbors have supported this request. The proposed fence will replace an existing fence and will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood.
If you agree, please raise your hands. We are unanimous in agreement. The findings of fact for a variance are hereby adopted. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item A, zoning code variance request to permit a fence to encroach into the required 35-foot front yard setback.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fleet, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion? May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Colan, you have our recommendation, and staff can tell you when you'll go before our Thursday evening committee of the whole, and I see no problems. Good luck to you. Planning and zoning item 10-022. Jeffrey Burkmeyer regarding the property located at 401 Lindley Road, Westmont, for the following. A, zoning code variance request to permit a shed to encroach into the front and side yard setbacks. B, zoning code variance request to permit the construction of an accessory structure less than 10 feet from the principal structure.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Jeff Burkmeyer, 401 Lindley. So like you summarized there, I'm looking for a variance to locate my shed in the location of the previous shed. The previous one had been getting rusty and starting to, fall apart and look ugly. So I contracted some professional builders to create a new shed for me in the same location. Similar, but a little larger than the other one. And And it was brought to my attention that it was not in the right location. So we stopped that work, and I've been waiting for the meetings here to see if we can get a variance on it. Right now, the way our lot is, it's on the corner of 55th and Lindley. So the length of our lot and essentially our entire lot is visible to 55th Street as you go down it, because our house is on the south end of the lot and 55th is on the north. To place the shed in the required location would be near the back of our lot and our neighbor's side lot. Our neighbor's yard faces 55th Street, so it would be in their side lot. Not the best from the security perspective and the privacy of our home. It would be nicer to keep it where it is now, out of sight of the road and out of sight of the kids that play in our neighborhood and in our backyard as well. So that's essentially the sum of it. We're looking to see if we can get that variance to keep the shed where it's been for the last 10 or 15 years.
Now, unlike our previous agenda item, you did not request a permit. Were you just not aware that you would be needing a permit for this?
Yeah, that's correct. I did not realize I needed a permit to replace the existing shed.
Okay, do we have anybody from the public who will speak on this item? If you would, please identify yourself and sign in.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Roos, and I live directly south of the Berkmeyers, right next door to them. I certainly do not have any problems with their shed. I think it's a beautiful shed. The shed that had been there for the last 15 years, everybody was concerned that it would be obstructing my view to 55th Street, but my house is set farther back than his garage is. So I have no issues whatsoever. I think he's done a great job on it. It looks beautiful. They are very proud homeowners. They are very nice homeowners. As he indicated, he has a lot of children. He has 2 children, and they have a lot of kids that come over and play with them. So I think if it was asked to put it in the backyard, then we might start having some problems. Kids get very curious, but certainly where it is right now has never obstructed my view because my house sits farther back than their house does. So I would ask that the committee approve them to get it finished so I don't have to look at the blue tarp anymore. That would be about it, though.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, I've signed in already. So my name's Yvette Cologne. Once again, I live at 408 Lindley. I live kitty corner to the family, and I had seen no problem with the construction of the new fence. Once again, we're experiencing this with my family about replacing and needing a permit. It is the blue tarp that's quite an eyesore. But just as a character on their family, when I first moved in, their family came over and brought me muffins to welcome me to the block. As a young homeowner, I thought that was wonderful. So they are great. They keep up their lawn. Children are out always playing. They wave every day. They're just great people. So I hope you guys consider this.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, we'll close the public comment. We'll start with Commissioner Pill, if you would.
Thank you. I appreciate your neighbor's support, and I also saw and read the letters that you've included with your application, and I really have no problem with this either. I think that being in a corner lot presents certain characteristics, and I don't want to necessarily say hardships, but certainly it makes it a little different than a mid-block lot. And you really are eliminated from 2 of your sides, and the other side then has a driveway by it, which would, I think, create a safety issue with that. So I sort of like where this, and that's probably why it was chosen to be there to start with. I think a continuation of that is an acceptable convenience. You had talked a little bit about the inside of it. Are you planning on doing anything special on the inside? You had, in the reading, there was some talk about possibly insulating, possibly using more of a fireproof type of a wall. Can you just comment on that, please?
Sure, yeah, certainly. It would be no problem to insulate it with fiberglass. I have some of that on hand. I could do the side against the house if that was felt that would be appropriate, or the entire interior. I hadn't planned on drywalling it or coating the inside with any fiberboard, but that's certainly an option. I can do that.
Okay. I'm not an expert on it. I just wanted to hear what you had to say, and certainly I'm sure that the economic and building departments could comment on that further when it gets to that point. But I certainly support your request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anton?
I went by there today and I saw the blue tarp, so I know how you feel about that. It needs to go away.
My dogs get out.
Yeah. So are you going to side that the same way the house is, so it'll fit, it'll match the house?
It's not the same.
If you would please come to the podium, the home audience cannot hear you.
I'll just hang out up here. Yeah, the siding for the shed is more vertically lined than the house is a horizontal, but the paint color is going to be the same. We matched it to the house, so.
Yeah, I went through, I kind of peeked in there today. It looks like it's well built. If your neighbor doesn't have a problem with it and everybody else seems to be okay with it, I mean, I don't see where I should be making judgment on your shed. I think it's a good spot. Your house on the other side, I think it'd take up too much yard, like you're saying. I mean, I had a corner lot before. It's just a pain.
Yeah.
It really is. I wouldn't do it again. I don't have a problem with it.
Thanks.
Commissioner Van Buren?
Yeah, I have a corner lot too, so I can sympathize with your plight. One of the reasons that we want separation is fire, and normally in these sheds we store our mowers, our gasoline, and so on like that. So I would personally feel that you should do everything you can to insulate against that probability. But other than that, I don't have a problem.
Commissioner Fleet?
The fence that runs east-west on your south,
Yeah.
you're going to tie that back in and side there?
I was originally planning to put the fence back up right around the shed like it was before, but listening to the Colognes, I might not be able to get a permit because I believe it would be too close to the front of the lot. So I was actually looking, because the shed turned out so nice and the color was going to match, I was going to just take that last fence section and attach it to the east side of the
East
shed
side,
and leave the rest of the shed visible.
Yeah, I too think that this, again, never saw the previous one. This looks like it's going the right direction. The only thing I would say is, and you can never say this too many times, that almost everything gets done on the outside of a house especially, and many things on the inside need permits. That's all.
Okay, thanks.
As we spoke earlier, I think it would look nicer if you were just to tie into the east side of your shed rather than encase it with a fence. It would detract from it. As Commissioner Van Buren also alluded, for fireproofing, since you would be storing, I would suggest that you may want to just cover it with drywall. Fiberglass isn't going to do a thing to stop a fire. But good drywall or fireboard would do a lot to keep fire from infringing into the house if it were to happen.
Do you think that it would benefit wouldn't it be necessary for the entire interior of the shed to have the drywall, or just the one up against the side of the house?
The fire chief would be a better source of information on that.
Okay, yeah, I can certainly do that.
Okay. That's all I have, though. Any further questions? Staff have any comments? Okay. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the board. Oh, wait a minute. We need a reading of findings of fact for item A, if we may have that, please.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant is seeking to replace an existing shed at its existing location. The shed measures 80 square feet, less than the maximum allowed for an accessory structure. The applicant will face an economic hardship if it needs to relocate this shed to the rear yard, and applicant is handicapped by a small lot size with limited yard space for this shed.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant is seeking to replace an existing shed at this location and has limited yard space to place a shed on his property.
Agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement?
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The shed will replace an existing shed at this location and therefore will not alter the existing character of the area. Surrounding neighbors are in support of this variance.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement. The findings of fact for a variance are hereby adopted. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item A, zoning code variance request to permit a shed to encroach into the front and side yard setback.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Anton, seconded by Commissioner Pill. Do we have a question on the motion? May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Okay, item B is another variance request. Reading of the findings of fact, please.
Oops.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant is seeking to replace an existing shed at its existing location. The shed measures 80 square feet, less than the maximum allowed for an accessory structure. The applicant will face an economic hardship if he needs to relocate this shed to the rear yard, and the applicant is handicapped by a small lot size with limited yard space for this shed.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement?
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant is seeking to replace an existing shed at this location and has limited yard space to place a shed on his property. The applicant can provide additional fire protection to this shed if required.
If you agree with this, we are unanimous in agreement?
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The shed will replace an existing shed at this location and therefore will not alter the existing character of the area. Surrounding neighbors are in support of this variance.
Agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement. The findings of fact for a variance are hereby adopted. I would entertain a motion, item B, entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees, zoning code variance request to permit the construction of an accessory structure less than 10 foot from the principal structure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Chairman Richard?
Yes. All right, sir, you have our recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and staff can tell you when you'll be scheduled for a Thursday evening committee of the whole.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good luck to you. Planning and zoning item 10-023. Alex Novak of Novation Group on behalf of T-Mobile and John L. Williams of Diamond Rock LLC regarding the property located at 3500 Midwest Road for the following. A, zoning code variance request to permit more than 3 antennae on a structure.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Alex Novak with Novation Group Consulting, representing T-Mobile. T-Mobile is actively expanding their network in the Chicagoland area, and as such has identified several areas of coverage need, holes in coverage, if you will. This one being located in Westmont, and in our search, we identified the Oak Brook Hills Marriott as an ideal location for a cell site. As you know, it's obviously become more or less a hub of cell sites for several carriers. So it gives us an ideal location, height-wise, works very well. The signal will propagate well. It eliminates the need for a new tower being built. We all want to avoid those and go on existing structures wherever possible. The reason I'm here before you tonight is that Westmont has an ordinance that allows for a variance in the event that you would need more than 3 antennas. Obviously, there are much more than 3 antennas up there right now, so we fall into the same category. We would be proposing to install 6 antennas in 3 sectors, so 2 antennas each over the course of 3 sectors on the rooftop. Equipment-mounted roof. The antennas are panel-style antennas. Will look very similar, if not identical, to what's already up there. And we think it's a good proposal. Hopefully, we've put a good application in front of you, and we're requesting approval for the variance tonight. With that, I would entertain any questions you may have.
All right. Is there anybody from the public who will speak on this issue? Close the public comment. Staff?
Staff agrees with the comment that we'd like to limit the addition of new towers wherever possible and use the existing structure to co-locate this type of equipment. There were at least 10, possibly more, pieces of antenna equipment up at this site already. There don't appear to be many issues in terms of visibility due to the height of the building and the setbacks from the public right-of-way. They're also adding a 10 by 17 structure on top just to house the equipment for the panels. And I too would be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, let's start with Commissioner Fleet.
I have no questions.
Okay.
Commissioner Van Buren?
No questions.
Commissioner Anton?
No questions.
Commissioner Pill?
No questions and support this. I think it's a great idea to co-locate.
Thank you.
The only question I had would be, how high would your equipment go above the roof line?
Let's see, I have the construction drawings with me. The antennas are, none of the antennas will be above the existing riser, I guess, or penthouse. Two of them will actually be attached to that penthouse. Or no, I'm sorry. Two will be attached to the antenna screen, which is below the roof line of the penthouse. The other four, excuse me, are on sled mounts, and they will be, let's see, top of the parapet wall is at 122 feet, and we look to be at about 127 feet, so 5 feet. And again, nothing, that's well below the existing roof line where the Marriott sign is.
So the equipment structure itself is not going to stick up too high over the antenna?
No.
Okay. That's the only question I have. All right. Since we have a variance request, we need a reading of the findings of the fact, if we could, please.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant will face difficulty in expanding its needed cellular network coverage and implementing technology upgrades without the ability to add additional antennas at this location. Without this variance, the applicant would be forced to seek placement of its new antennas/technology on a new structure at considerably greater expense to the applicant. The additional antennas and upgraded technology will benefit the public and will eliminate the need to add an additional monopole tower or other structure within the village.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant is hoping to take advantage of using an existing structure at a lower cost to the applicant rather than burden the village with installing a new cellular tower structure.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The applicant plans to utilize an existing cellular antenna structure. Due to the height and setback of this structure, these additional antennas will not be particularly noticeable to the public and will not alter the essential character of the area.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement. The findings of fact for a variance request are hereby adopted. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees, a zoning code variance request to permit more than 3 antennae on a structure.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Chairman Richard?
Yes. All right, sir, you have our recommendation. The staff can tell you when you'll be scheduled for a Thursday evening committee of the whole.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, I just
Thank
had
you
a
very much.
question. I just wanted to
Please,
ask
if
these
you
gentlemen,
would.
do they get to stay in the penthouse when they construct the antenna, or is that part of the deal?
It's part of the program.
That would be a heck of a deal. That would be good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Planning and zoning item 10-024, Michael J. Kaufman and Samuel Ray of Knightsbridge Design and Build with Donald Burke of D.W. Burke and Associates regarding the property located at 233 and 235 North Cass for the following: A, special use permit request to operate a ground floor office in the B1 Limited Business District. Item B, plat of subdivision to consolidate 2 parcels into 1 buildable lot. Item C, zoning code variance request to permit the construction of an office building which will encroach into the required front yard setback. A 0 lot line is shown where code requires a 5-foot setback. Item D, zoning code variance request to permit the construction of an office building which will encroach into the required side yard setbacks. A 0 lot line is shown where code requires a 5-foot setback. Item E, zoning code variance request to reduce the number of required off-street parking stalls to 9. Item F, site and landscaping plan approval. I lost track, if I may. Did I swear both of you gentlemen in?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Michael Kaufman. I'm with Nicebridge Design Build. With me tonight is Mike Cody from Cody Architects. He's our architect on this project. We're here with the property owner, Mr. Donald Burke, in case there are any questions for him. But we're here seeking the variances so that we can develop the properties at 233 and 235 into a single-story office structure, office retail type structure, and really perform some infill in the north end of your central business district, provides new construction and new development within the area for potential new business. We've put together what we feel is a real nice development on the property, working with staff to present the package. The variances we're seeking will allow us to maximize the site and for the uses that we're proposing.
Okay, could you take us through the hardships which are you're going to experience?
For the project itself, can I just turn this on, I guess?
It's on.
Okay. Just the picture of the building there. It's the artist rendering. The first one, a special use permit. We're seeking a special use for ground floor for office in the limited business district. With the current market and the ability to lease it out, right now retail is very, very soft, as you may know. And we're seeking the ability to utilize the potential medical type office, dentist, chiropractor type facility, in addition to the retail that could potentially go there. Since it's only a single-story structure, we're seeking a special use in order to be able to find the tenants for the building. For the second one, the plat of subdivision, we're seeking to combine the 2 properties at 233 and 235 into a single property so that we can construct the building. The zoning code variance request regarding the 0 lot lines at the front setback and at the side setback. In meeting with staff and the Economic Development Board, we designed it to a 0 lot line in order to meet the overall development plan of the village and the central business district, to remove the gap tooth effect of the buildings, bring the building closer to the sidewalk, make it a more lively environment, keep the sidewalk close to the building as well as to the side property lines. The zoning code variance for the parking stalls, we have laid out the property such that we could maximize the number of parking stalls on the property while creating a building large enough to lease out to potentially 2 tenants. By bringing the building forward, we're able to provide 9 parking stalls on site. There will be street parking on the front of the building, and there is a public lot a half a block to the south of the building. In meeting with the economic development, Shannon and Fred, we worked hard to make sure that we could maximize the number of spaces that we had on the site. And lastly, we're seeking our site and landscape approval tonight.
All right. Is there anybody from the public who will speak on this? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Please, come up. Did I swear you in, sir? Yes. Okay.
Hi, my name is Gil Talent. I have the property at 229 North Cass. I think it's good that Don's going to build a new building there. It'll be great for the area. I have a few problems or questions about the side yard setbacks because our building, we have the code requirement a little over 5 feet on both sides. We have retaining walls on the north side of our building because the topography of the property drops off. We feel if they build the foundation right next to our retaining walls, it'll undermine our retaining walls. Plus, we think that'll be a hardship as far as like just trying to get up and down from the front of the alley to the front of the building because a lot of people seem to walk that way. On the south side of our property, we have a sidewalk from the driveway in the back all the way to the front of our property, which a lot of the kids walk through there for school and things like that. As far as the parking, there is a parking problem over there already, but I know that you just need a certain amount of spaces for a building. My big concern is the side yard and the front yard setback because Dilworth Windows and the apartment building and my building and the one south of this property, they all have some grass in front of the property, which, you know, is attractive, I think. And this building would stick out in front of all of our buildings. So that's my main concern.
All right.
And I think I gave Shannon a letter on that.
Yeah, we received.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment? If you would care to.
Oh, actually, no, I don't think I have any further comment on that.
Okay, we'll close the public comment. We'll go to staff.
Shannon,
if first. Any comments on this?
Sure. A couple of things. There were some review comments passed out this evening from the fire department and from our planning engineer, Kim Nickel, that were made available. The project is subject to final engineering, so a lot of the details in terms of detention and the retaining wall issues would be hashed out at the tail end if the project gets the zoning approval. Also, the building will need to be sprinklered and have fire alarms. Secondly, the parking situation, staff kind of estimated using the worst case scenario for office tenants because we don't know who the final end users are here in this situation. As they lease, we will receive business license applications and then verify that their parking needs can be met on site, or else if it exceeds the variance request here, they may have to come back as they fill their space. Another comment that staff had made in the report was that there could be consideration of sunsetting clause for the ground floor office if it is the commission and board's decision that long-term we still want to encourage the restaurant and retail users, but in this market, obviously, that has been quite difficult. And then to address the comments regarding the zero lot line on front and the side yards. The original plan that the developer submitted, it did show a setback in front, and staff in reviewing the comprehensive planning documents, the downtown transit-oriented development plan, and even the parking study that was done most recently, infill development in the central business district has been encouraged to go to a zero setback in order to improve the pedestrian experience, have a solid street wall, and avoid that, I guess, gap tooth appearance that you guys had referred to. So staff does support the request for variance in order to further the goals of the long-term strategic plan for the Central Business District.
Mr. Chairman, if I could amplify a little bit on what the village planner has also mentioned, is that we believe that the planning and the strategic development plan for the village of Westmont has to be long-term. In other words, we can't look ahead just 2 or 3 years. We have to look ahead 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And over the long haul, we'd like to see all of those buildings up at the sidewalk. The fact that we have a few in this particular area that aren't shouldn't negate our plan to ultimately, in the long term, so that our great-grandchildren can enjoy that downtown streetscape, bring all of those buildings up to the sidewalk. And with all due respect to Mr. Talent, if he would like to come forward and apply to petition to put an addition onto the front of his building to also bring his building up to the streetscape, staff would be happy to work with him in that regard. But, you know, he bought the building as is. Yes, not all buildings in the downtown meet this front sidewalk setback, desirable goal, but certainly the vast majority of them do. We'd like to bring all of them up there over a long period of time. We think that makes good planning sense for the Central Business District.
Okay, thank you very much.
The other thing we would comment on, too, Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Burke has been very good in talking with us. He's had this property for some time, and from time to time we would have phone calls about, gosh, the market still looks kind of crummy out there. I'd like to do something on an infill here, but the retail market is just not there. What would you think about if we brought forward for the consideration of the village a spec building, if you will, that we could maybe put medical offices in, but we would design the building in such a way that it would be easily converted to a retail use, would have a retail look about it in the future. We thought that made sense, and staff, not wanting to exercise any policy decisions in that regard, felt it was appropriate to bring this forward through the appropriate process, such as before planning and zoning and ultimately the village board, to say, okay, village, what do you think in an official capacity here? Staff likes the idea. We've been pleased to work with Mr. Burke in bringing this design forward. We think it's an attractive building that long-term could contribute to the retail economic base of the downtown.
Okay, very fine. We'll start with Commissioner Pill on the issue, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Was there any thought given to a 2-story building?
There was, but the cost, as well as to go to 2 stories and provide the foundations for it, we had more of a concern with the undermining of the adjacent properties in Cass Avenue, and we chose to stay with a single story on shallow footings.
And also, Mr. Chairman, if they do that, for every office or residential unit they'd put up there, they would create a need for yet additional on-site parking, and the space is somewhat limited there. So that would exacerbate their parking shortage were they to go multi-story on this structure.
That's true.
But with the Bella Reeve project across the street, they were fairly well able to mitigate that problem.
Well, but they have a little bit different there. They have underground parking underneath the building, or in the back there, I guess.
They have it in the back.
They built it into the building, yes.
Yeah.
And they also had, I think, 3 lots there that were 60-foot lots. I'm not sure the exact dimensions on that right off the top of my head. This is 2 30-foot lots, I think, brought together in one 60-foot lot. And I think the Bella Reeve project is much larger than that in terms of its width. That gives you a little bit more flexibility when you have that larger assemblage to work with.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No problem at all. Thank you. Now, at this point, if this building were to proceed in the format that we've been given, is it your intention to have underground drainage then, or stormwater detention?
Yeah, there will be. We'll store as much as possible above ground, but there will be underground storage for the balance of it. And we'll make sure that we meet the requirements of the engineering department.
Where would you be storing any of it above ground?
There is a small green space to the north of the parking lot, as well as we are allowed some storage within the parking lot itself.
Yeah, curb and gutter on the parking lot, I believe, if the planning engineer were here to discuss that, you can allow a temporary increase in the depth of water on the parking lot and then have it run off after a heavy rain. But you can detain it on your property up on the parking lot surface. It's a little bit inconvenient for your customers if they disembark from their vehicle during a heavy rain and walk into, 3/4 of an inch of water. That's not a very pleasant experience, but the cost of underground stormwater detention is extremely expensive.
And the majority of the detention would end up being underground as well.
Because I like the building, I like the concept, and I like the development process. My problems are in the not enough parking, snow storage and removal. If you're going to build this thing lot to lot and basically cover the entire back area, where are you going to put that snow? The detention, and then the fourth thing is, and perhaps either Shannon or Fred can comment on the relationship of the development of this property to the alley. The alley is narrow in spots, wider in others, certainly in need of repair or improvement in many areas. There's people parking back there on a regular basis. So I'm just trying to figure out now, so if he has to improve his section of the alley and crown it, where is that water going to go? Are there going to be storm sewers running down the alley, or are there existing storm sewers there? Where does that water then go also, and that snow when it melts?
Well, there is an existing storm sewer system in the alleyway, and actually when they talked about a crown, it's an inverted crown. So that water will stay in that alleyway and be directed to that existing system.
Okay. And then the water on your property will go into
our catch basins and system, and then tie into the city system.
And through some type of a restricted outflow.
With a restrictor, correct. And then this green area adjacent to the parking is where we plan on storing the snow.
That's going to be marginal at best, I think we would all agree. And certainly it's going to be tricky after the third snowfall to be getting it piled up in there. But it seems like pretty much everybody else is built back there. I have to be honest in that I don't go back there a lot in the winter. Today was not a representative day to look at snow. So I'm not sure where everybody else is putting it, but everybody else is pretty much built up in the back there. Your neighbor to the south, Dilworth, the neighbors to the north, everybody's pretty much built up, so they're doing something with the snow. I don't know where it's going, but somebody's doing something with it. So I don't think I have any other questions now. I'd like to just reserve the ability to ask some more. I'd like to hear this go through the cycle here.
Sure. Commissioner Ranton?
I like the way the building looks, and I like the way you guys have worked with the staff on it, making it so you could transfer it over to retail if that ever came about in the near future. You gotta be a realist. You know something's gonna be built. It's a town. There's an empty lot. Something's gonna go in there. So I think you guys have done some due diligence on it. What I'm wrestling with is I don't particularly like the zero lot line. I thought I did, but then looking at with the other owner being in there, and then looking at your drawing, it's kind of a, I don't know, kind of a snake through there with the storefronts. And I agree with staff. I totally agree with Fred. We got to follow our comprehensive plan, but we also don't want to look like, we're throwing things out there. It's kind of a hard thing there. My initial feeling is to set it back and match the other building that's closest to it to make it a unified front going across. And that's not impossible because you've got a bit of sidewalk on the back here. It's not going to impact any of your spaces. You're going to lose 150 square feet per, and really you really wouldn't. You can just collapse down on this sidewalk back here and make the sidewalk in that 5 feet. So really you wouldn't lose any retails, any of your space. It's just a matter of aesthetics. Because I don't think the other property owner is really going to add on to his building to make it look like it belongs at zero lot line. So that's the only thing I'm wrestling with. I mean, I know a building's going to go there. Your building looks really nice, and it'll be a good addition. I'm just wrestling with, and I'd like to also wait to see what the other commissioners think, because zero, I'm not leaning towards zero. And I was when I walked in. I walked over there, and then I looked down at the print, and I'm seeing the buildings in a line, because walking out there, you really don't see it. But now, looking at the print, I don't really like this jagged look in here like we don't know what we're doing. So I'd like to hear what the other commissioners have to say, but that's really the only concern I have. I know engineering will work it out. I mean, I've got a $1 million retention system in Schaumburg going right now for a parking garage I'm doing, so retention's big dollars, so that's all I have. I have the concern about the front.
Commissioner Van Buren?
I don't really have any problem with the zero lot line. There is going to be a long-term inconsistency there because the lifespan of the buildings that are both sides is obviously not fulfilled. It's going to be a long time before there's a conformance to a zero lot line. So I understand your concern in that regard of not wanting to be set back from the buildings and the new buildings going in. My concern is, and it's almost counterproductive is to our wishes here, but is to be a spec builder at a time like this when there's such high vacancy. Are you a glutton for punishment or what?
I'll leave that question up to the owner.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yeah, I too have some reservations about the idea of more square footage in an area that we already have a lot of square footage that's looking for business. On the zero lot line, I like how it's laid out. I think it adds some texture to the to that side of the street. One thing with a zero lot line, if you had a restaurant in there, is possibly they could put in the summertime they could put tables outside, which would be harder to do with the zero lot line, and also the fact that if doors are opening outward, things need to be set up just so that there's enough swing space so it doesn't clock somebody walking by. On the driveway, would that be, not knowing the type of business go in there, but say they're open at 9 o'clock, so you can install lights in the driveway and
It'll be a lighted parking lot as well.
And then the other thing is just traffic flow, because when you come out of the current public parking lot there, you have to go south. Signs take you south, and now there's not supposed to be any kids back there from school because we're all supposed to go out the front of the school and that, but you know how kids are. There's always stuff. There would be this coming from the north. The alleyway is not always in the best shape, depending on whose business you're going by, and also snow plowing would be a concern from whichever way you're going to clear. But that just costs business removing the snow. So I'd like to hear if my fellow commissioners have anything additional.
Okay. I have to disagree with Mr. Kimball on this one particular thing. I don't have a problem with your zero side yard lot line. I do have a problem with the front yard, mainly for the reason that the two structures immediately to the north of you and the two structures immediately to the south of you have at least a 5-foot setback, and they have a service life of at least 50 years, Fred. They're not going to change. I think we would create a better sitescape if we were to have 5 structures right in a row with the same setback. And as Commissioner Anton said, you could collapse that just by eliminating the sidewalk in the rear, and you would not lose any square footage of your building. If they were to have a 0 front yard setback, you're showing awnings on the building which would encroach into the public right away. That also would then presumably, if this were built, they'd need a variance on that.
I think there's an allowable encroachment for awnings in the downtown central business district.
Is there?
There is. I'm thinking we've got a considerable number of buildings that already fit that bill.
Okay, I wasn't sure, so that's why I brought it up. On your drawing, your stormwater retention is only proposed. Is that to be a sure thing, the underground storage, or?
Yeah, it will be, and we'll meet the engineering requirements. These were preliminary engineering plans.
Okay. I myself, I wish you had the room where you could put something with residential on the second floor. I think that would do, but as Mr. Kimball pretty well explained, you're sort of hemmed in with only 60 feet to work, so I understand that. As Commissioner Fleet brought up, I question why you want to put a speculative building up right now with so much square footage of retail space, just begging to have anybody take it.
If I could address that.
Right now, we have such a surplus of, and I'm sorry to see it, in our downtown business district. So if you could please address some of these concerns.
One of the reasons why we're looking to do the spec building now is, frankly, we are coming out of a recession. It's a slow recovery, but it's starting. It does take time to put a building up, to go through the zoning process, the permit process, and the construction. It would be a new structure, a new building, which is always more appealing than going into an existing space. And we're trying to just really get ahead of the economic curve on this one, to have space available for the clients that we believe will be out there within the next year.
All right.
With respect to the zero lot line, I have to, if you could forgive my ignorance, across the street from them, have they built up to zero lot line as well? So
probably yes.
So the entire surrounding area, except for the immediate properties, are at the zero lot.
That's where you are. That's your environment.
But your environment is the buildings adjacent to you. And I could foresee a 40-year time span where you would be jutting out and they would be back, and we're back to the sawtooth, where I think it would be more beneficial to have one continuous setback for those 5 buildings. My opinion. I'm voice in the wilderness at times. Please, any commissioner, feel free.
Mr. Pearl?
No, I don't have any further questions at this time.
Commissioner Anton?
Yeah, I can't go for the zero. I know it's part of the comprehensive plan. I'm a big fan of the plan. But like you said, that's your direct neighbors, or the ones across the way are 70, 60 years old. How old are those dry cleaners in that tile place?
Yeah,
those
that's
are pretty
quite
old buildings. Those are, somehow these snuck underneath the radar, and they're back 5 feet. So I think you got to match it. It's not unlike a house. I mean, my house, we built it to match the houses next door. You know, we have to, otherwise it doesn't look right. And I totally agree. I mean, I would be the first guy out there saying it's got to match. If everybody else is on the curb, we've got to be on the curb. You can't be 5 feet back. You got to be on the curb. I mean, are we crazy? So this is the same kind of thing, just the other way around, unfortunately. And again, too, you could throw some table and chairs out there, a nice little look to it. I got to go with 5 feet back. That's my opinion.
Commissioner Van Buren?
Yeah, it puts you in kind of a dilemma, because it's been strongly suggested to you by staff, and you've spent the time and money in trying to make that work, even though you were originally willing to be at the 5-yard setback. So I understand what a dilemma that is for you. So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to pass it on to the village board and see how they feel about that.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yeah, I hear, you know, if we were in houses and everything, I think that the zero front lot line, I think, to me anyway, would add, again, some texture to that side of the street, that sawtooth, but something that would break up the
Canyon.
the view as someone's driving down.
All right. I have no further comments.
Chairman?
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
Staff
Fred.
loves a spirited debate, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to jump right in here again. We'd like to suggest that since this is a provision of the comprehensive plan, we think that's a very important consideration for the Planning and Zoning Commission to take into account. And looking at this from a little bit different perspective, we'd like to respectfully suggest that it's not this building, which is out of character with our downtown, but the other 2 or 3 buildings that we're trying to compare it from that are immediately adjacent to it. All the other buildings in the downtown B1 district on both sides of the street are up at the street level. So it's not this building that's the anomaly. It's these other 2 or 3 buildings that you're referencing and trying now to make this building conform to that anomaly in the greater downtown central business district. We feel that's an important consideration in the way that this should be viewed, respectfully.
2 wrongs don't make a right. I mean, I can't see, I don't know, it's just my personal opinion. I mean,
So what we're saying is, don't make this guy do it wrong compared to the rest of the downtown central business district.
I'm a builder too, and I just can't stomach it. It's just my way. Unfortunately, that's the way it is for me. I have to go that route. I totally love, the comprehensive plan, I'm all for it. But if it didn't matter, the owner right there wouldn't be here either. He wouldn't be worried about the way it's going to look. And really, it's actually not a bad-looking thing if you look at it, because it's got a brick side. They're not trying to be cheap. They're doing a good job. They've got brick all the way around. It really won't look that bad. It's just not right for me. That's all.
One other document that we haven't talked a little bit about, and that's I think the design guidelines from the National Main Street Historic Preservation Organization would also seem to indicate this is the planning goal in a downtown central business district. Bring those buildings up to the sidewalk, because if you do decide, as has been talked about tonight, to do the sidewalk cafe thing, you want them right on the sidewalk there. You don't want them set back from the street. You want them on the sidewalk to give that European sidewalk cafe feel. And I think so, in addition to the comprehensive plan, the transit-oriented design study of 2001 for our downtown, the National Historic Preservation Trust Main Street guidelines, all of the planning documents that this village has paid good money to have would suggest that that building should be up on the sidewalk.
All right.
That's the great thing about public debate. It's all opinion, and everybody else's opinion is as good as the next.
Fred, you're wrong. That's all I can say.
Okay. Spirited discussion over with. Item A is a special use permit, so if we may have a reading of findings of fact.
Criteria number 1, the proposed use at this location will not have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a special use, irrespective of its location within the zoning district. This is a speculative building, and therefore the user is not yet known. At this time, there is sufficient off-street parking on the property to accommodate the office, and there is additional public parking on the street and in public parking lots in the vicinity of this proposed business. It is not expected that this proposed office will result in any adverse noise, traffic congestion, parking problems, litter, or other adverse or unique impacts to the surrounding property owners or to the public.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 2, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 4, adverse impact.
I think that's 2.
Is it special condition number 2?
That'll work.
Okay. The proposed use will not result in appreciable traffic congestion or hazard to pedestrian safety. The property features 9 off-street parking spaces in its parking lot, as well as ample public parking in the immediate vicinity. Additionally, there are public sidewalks which service this use and other businesses in the area, and the volume of business is not expected to generate significant vehicular or pedestrian traffic.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement. Okay, the findings of fact for a special use are hereby adopted. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item A, special use permit request to operate a ground floor office in the B1 Limited Business District.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Anton, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Question on the motion? May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Richard.
Yes. Okay. Item B is a plat of subdivision to consolidate 2 parcels into 1 buildable lot. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Fleet. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Chairman Richard.
Yes. Item C is a variance request. May we have readings of the finding of fact?
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant seeks to obtain a setback variance for a new office building in the B1 Limited Business District. The request is for a 0 lot line in lieu of the code-required 5-foot setback. Typically, infill development in the Central Business District applications have been encouraged to be constructed with 0 lot lines at the front and side yard setback. This principle is memorialized in both the downtown parking study by Rich and Associates and the transit-oriented development plan by Farr and Associates.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Commissioner Pill, Commissioner Fleet agree. If you disagree, raise your hands. Commissioners Anton, Richard, and Van Buren against.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant seeks a 0 lot line based on the theory that eliminating the setback in downtown area helps encourage a lively pedestrian environment with a continuous street wall.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Commissioners Fleet and Pill in agreement. Disagree? Commissioners Anton, Richard, Van Buren disagree.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The applicant seeks to eliminate the required setback to maintain the continuity of the downtown business district area.
If you agree, raise your hand. Commissioner Fleet and Pill in agreement. Disagree? Commissioners Anton, Richard, Van Buren disagree. Question for attorney. Now, 4 votes for or against. Did this motion pass or did it fail?
This was 2 to 3, I thought.
Yes, correct. So it's simple majority?
Simple majority.
All right, very fine. So the findings of fact for a front yard setback are hereby not approved. Item C, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item C, a zoning code variance request to permit the construction of an office building which will encroach into the required front yard setback.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Question on the motion. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Anton?
No.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Mr. Van Buren votes no. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
And Commissioner Richard?
No. Okay. Item D is another variance request. May we have reading of the findings of fact?
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant seeks to obtain a setback variance for a new office building in the B1 Limited Business District. Whoops. That's the previous one, isn't it? Side yard setbacks. In lieu of the code-required 5-foot setback. Typically, infill development in the Central Business District application have been encouraged to be constructed with 0 lot lines at the front and side yard setback. This principle is memorialized in both the downtown parking study by Rich and Associates and the TOD study plan by Farr and Associates.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant seeks a 0 lot line based upon the theory that eliminating the setback in downtown areas helps encourage a lively pedestrian environment with a continuous street wall.
If you agree, please raise your hand.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The applicant seeks to eliminate the required setback to maintain the continuity of the downtown business district area.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement. The findings of fact for a variance are hereby adopted. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item D, zoning code variance request to permit the construction of an office building which will encroach into the required side yard setbacks.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet? Side yard setback.
For the
Side yard setback, and they're asking for five.
For zero.
They're asking for 0.
And our findings of fact that we've just adopted.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Okay, we have another variance request, so may we have reading of the finding of the fact.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant seeks to obtain a reduction in the number of required off-street parking stalls. The proposed speculative building will feature approximately 3,945 square feet of floor area, resulting in a requirement of 14 off-street parking spaces. The site plan shows 9 spaces, 1 handicap stall for a deficiency of 4 stalls. The petitioner requests a parking variance to allow a lesser amount of parking spaces than what code requires. However, it should be noted that the final number of required parking spaces may be less than 14, depending on the end user and the specific build-out configuration. Staff estimated using the worst-case scenario figures for office tenants, but parking needs will be reevaluated as the space is occupied.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant seeks a reduction in the number of required off-street parking stalls for a speculative building. No occupant or use has been defined at this point, and the required number of spaces may be less than required depending upon the end user. Therefore, the plight of the owner is unique.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The applicant seeks to reduce the number of off-street required parking stalls by 4. The proposed variance in parking is similar to other businesses along Cass Avenue, and this variance will not alter the character of the neighborhood.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. The findings of fact for a variance request are hereby adopted. Item E, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees zoning code variance request to reduce the number of required off-street parking stalls to 9.
So moved.
Okay, I heard Commissioner Fleet first and second by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion?
Yes.
Roll call. Oh, please.
I have a couple questions. First of all, with the parking deficiency, are there now fees for parking deficiencies where there'll be money paid in lieu of that? And if so, could that be explained?
Yes, the village board did recently enact the cash in lieu parking variance program. So Fred, you may have to help remind me, but I think it was 0 through 5 was a $500 charge. And then the next tier, I believe, every space over 5 was an additional $250 through, was that 12 spaces? So there would be a fee assessed if the variance is finalized.
And that monies, as you recall, Commissioner, would go into an enterprise or a special fund escrowed for the purpose of using that to improve parking in the downtown area, perhaps land acquisition in the future for other properties that could be transferred or transformed into public parking lots.
Now, we
Go
discussed...
ahead, I'm sorry.
We discussed that you were using a worst-case scenario in the computation of this, but I believe that worst-case scenario was in keeping with the spirit of this becoming office, as opposed to retail, or perhaps even a higher use would be restaurant or something like that. So are they under an obligation, once they build this building, prior to a lease being signed with a tenant, a prospective tenant, would they come before us again? Or would they do this with staff? Or is there no obligation to reconfigure or redo the math to figure out exactly what the number is at that time?
Well, staff would interpret this, Commissioner, as we would evaluate based on the specific occupancy, how many spaces would be required. And as you may recall, all permissions to develop a new business in the downtown central business district must come before the village board to receive approval for that development permit. In addition, if there were an additional parking variance necessary as a result of that specific occupancy, that would have to come back before the Planning and Zoning Commission and then subsequently to the village board.
And then just, not that this has an application at this time, but just so that I understand this, let's say that two businesses were to go in here, two separate businesses, A and B, and A goes in first and requires 6 spots, so he gets in there first and gets 6 of your 9. And B comes in and needs 6 spots, and there's only 3. Does B pay for the 3-spot fee? Or do they split it and each pay 1.5? How does that work in the end?
Some of these logistics will be worked out because we actually haven't had an example come through as of yet. So there's still going to be a little bit of a learning curve. But in this particular case, the variance that was requested was to go from 14 to 9. That would be a total of 12. So we would somehow have to pick it up between those two tenants and figure that out administratively and track it.
Yeah, what was it, the Civil War general that said he wanted to get there firstest with the mostest, so I don't know if first in gives you squatters' rights and you get, however many you need, and the next guy is going to be short and he has to pay the full boat.
I'm sure ultimately it becomes a landlord-lessee type of situation. I'm sure that's the overall.
Most likely it's something that would be handled in lease negotiations.
Yeah, I was just curious, thinking ahead how this would play out, because I'm aware that this is our first one of these since the new ordinances were enacted.
We would most assuredly be looking to village legal counsel and co-counsel for guidance when that eventuality occurs.
I'm worried about you.
I was up late last night thinking about those questions. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion with a second. No more discussion? Hearing none? Well, we have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Chairman Richard?
Yes. All right. Leaves us with item F, a site and landscaping plan approval. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion? May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. All right, sir, you have our recommendation. Staff can again tell you when you'll be scheduled for a Thursday evening committee of the whole.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff, any?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've mentioned during our discussions this evening the subject of the comprehensive plan, and we just wanted to remind the commission and the general public that we're trying to fund, if you will, the rewrite of our village-wide comprehensive plan by straddling 2 fiscal years. So towards the end of September, the village planner, I think, is preparing an RFP document that will go out to various consultants to see what kind of qualifications and pricing may be out there in this depressed economic time to see if we can get a better deal, and trying to nail that down to a group of finalist candidate consultants that can assist us in this most important process for the community. We see this as a process that will occur, as we said, over 2 fiscal years so that we can spread the financing out over 2 years. We hope to work with the selected consultant to establish a series of public visioning sessions with different constituency groups throughout this great community. We may be meeting with groups of homeowners associations, meeting with groups of service clubs, meeting with representatives of the religious community, meeting with representatives of other units of local government, neighborhood associations, that sort of thing, to try to get an idea from folks in the village of Westmont. What would you like this community to look like 10, 15, 20 years into the future? Then the planning consultant, as a part of the comprehensive plan, will help us determine an adequate inventory of our resources and our current status situation within the village, and then measure that against that community vision and say, now let's make that roadmap. How do we get from where we are currently to what that community vision is that we reach by consensus decision over that period of time? And that really is kind of the 25-cent version of what a comprehensive plan is. So it's most important that we begin talking about this and promoting it with the general public to say, when those visioning sessions are called for, it's very important that you exercise your civic duty and step forward and participate in those. We want to hear what you have to say. This community can only be as great as the people that are in it, and we want to hear what you want this community to look like in 20 years from now.
You envision, as you have mailings to the residents of the village, like the garbage room and the water bill, include a little
certainly
update and say, you know, if you're so inclined, please start thinking about this?
We would take advantage of every opportunity, maybe in the community newsletter, in the water billings, through press releases on the village website to remind people that as these visioning sessions become more imminent, please put them on your calendar and step forward and do your civic duty and participate.
Sounds good. Anything further? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Anton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.